Alan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So as a committee, we visited Spire Global and AC Clyde, and obviously they put CubeSats into space. Now, they were very clear that it would be advantageous for Scotland to have that end-to-end capability. So I suppose to yourself, Scott, how important is it that Scotland does have that end-to-end capability, or does that even factor in your rationale and what you're doing?
So I think it is very important. It's getting the whole value chain into Scotland. There's no doubt about that. You know, as I'm sure you're aware, Glasgow, Spire, Clyde Space as they used to be, you know, they build more CubeSats outside of Silicon Valley over in the States. So we have that capability. Don't forget also Edinburgh. Edinburgh is really good for making sense of all that space data. What we don't have is the launch capability. So you've got companies like Orbex and SkyRora here in the UK who are going to hopefully provide that, and we can launch from Scotland itself. I would like to broaden it out a little more, though, from Scotland. You know, our customers coming to us are from Germany, they're from France, they're from the US, they're possibly from South Korea, from Spain. So we're very much an international entity, and that's where we can bring in that foreign investment into Shetland, our spaceport, and the wider economy. So it's really important for Scotland, but think wider, that we can actually be a complete leader here in Europe. And we come back to, you know, we have a spaceport license. We are the only vertical launch orbital spaceport in Western Europe. That's a massive opportunity. So I would like to think bigger and dream bigger.
Okay, and I mean, you already said in answer to the Chair that you think there should be a lead politician in charge of launch. But in terms of this developing end-to-end capability, is there anything else the Scottish or UK governments should be doing?
I would like to see launch contracts. That I think is the way. We've had up to now grants, and I don't think those have worked particularly well. I think there's issues with oversight in grants and how they are applied. If we have the launch contracts, that would allow companies to bid for them. You'd get a good deal for the taxpayer. And from a company's point of view, if I've got a contract directly with the government, I can leverage that and borrow against that. So I would like to see more contracts given and have the government as a customer more than the grant giver.
And what would the government as a customer get out of providing a launch contract? Interestingly, the CubeSat companies would like to see government buy more services off them as well, but what would the government get from providing a launch contract?
Well, what they need to do with that, I think, is look at what do they want the satellites to do. I think Department of Environment could quite easily put some satellites up to aid all of our activities to help with the UN, etc., etc. So you'd actually be putting a satellite up there. The sheer fact, though, that you've got the UK or Scottish government, it could be them, because you know they're not that expensive, these launches. It would hold first of all the industry to account. It would show that government is serious about what they're doing, and I think it would really a real sort of encourage the whole of the industry and young people looking at the industry to see that we're getting direct support from governments.
Would it need to be a multi-launch contract? I mean, let's be honest, not all launches are initially successful, so would it need to be a multi-contract?
Martin and I would love a multi-contract.
And can you put a figure on it?
10.
No, I mean a financial figure on like what a launch contract, say an individual launch contract, how much money we're talking about if that was...
So it's generally, and I think Martin's probably better to answer this, they do a price per kilogram. And it depends at the moment where you look in the market, but you're probably looking at between $20,000 and $30,000 per kilogram. So depending on how much you want to put up, that's how much you'd pay. So it would be different. But I suspect Martin would be able to give you an idea of what you're going to charge.
Is your cue, Martin?
I suppose one thing to observe on the sort of price per kilogram view is when you're doing it just on a price basis, you'd go to places like SpaceX because that scale of rocket is cheaper per kilogram, other factors notwithstanding. So we're not into a price competitive piece. That's why we're on the eco, the convenience and all those other factors. So we'd be looking at launches somewhere north of £7 million at each launch, regardless of what the payload actually is. So that's kind of what it costs to put one in, and that's the all-in, including the operation of a spaceport, of course.
Do you think you'll get there without, say, a government launch contract, or would that government incentive help yourselves as well?
A government incentive always helps, because I'd echo Scott's comment. If you've got a government relationship, it gives you a bit of gold braiding when you're out talking to other investors. Are we going to fail if we don't get it? No, but it would make life an awful lot easier.
And do you have anything to add in views of that end-to-end capability for Scotland, or anything else that needs done to see that
the extra
through?
bit that you get sort of ratio perspective with Spaceport and launch vehicle at this scale as well. Once you go up into larger launch vehicles, it's even more skewed, but it's something like about 10% of my development budget delivers the Spaceport. 90% of it goes into the launch vehicle. So 120 jobs sat in Forest are all highly skilled engineers working primarily on that, including the launch system for the launch itself. So it's that wider ecosystem that I draw your attention to, because those people are paying tax and living and spending money in Scotland, and then that creates a cascade through on that side of the economy. The other thing we're trying to do is source everything we can in Europe, UK preferable. We ought to look at a commercial view, and at the moment the only thing I can't buy in Europe is carbon fibre at the quality that I need it. Everything else, one way or another, I think I can organise to source.
Would you mind just a little bit more, Mr. Close? It's a big old echo here.
No problem. Everything else I can source in Europe, and a lot of it in the UK. So we're trying to put all the manufacturing facility in Scotland, and there's a scale that we're operating at today, but to actually get into production when we're trying to produce one a month and going upwards to 30 or 40 a year, that is a significant facility that has cascades all the way through, because we need ancillary companies to support that kind of supply chain. So that kind of ecosystem is the broader piece that I think about. And you go into the training, where are the skills and technicians and engineers going to come from that feed into that in order to support that kind of run rate? That is quite an ambitious undertaking for Scotland to be looking at.
You got a timescale for how you see that?
Sorry?
You got a timescale for when you see that ecosystem in an ideal world come to fruition in Scotland?
We would have to be starting to plan our main manufacturing facility early next year. We will already be starting to say, what does that need to be? How big does it need to be? What's it going to employ? Looking on a 5 to 10 year horizon, all the jobs, all the equipment, everything else that needs to go in that.
Okay, thanks. We'll just move on to back to yourself, Scott. Just some questions specific to your own proposals, or SaxaVord's proposals. So why did you choose Shetland as opposed to anywhere else?
It's a really good question. It comes back to why Scotland, and it does come back to geography and physics. So if we want to go into a polar orbit, you don't want Earth spin. So ideally you'd be up at the pole, because there's minimum Earth spin up there. Now that's a tricky place to operate. So the analogy here is you've come up to a really strong river. You want to swim across the river and get to that point there. If you just point at it, you'll end up downstream. So you actually point up and you do a longer bit of swimming through the river to get to where you want to. And it's exactly the same with Earth spin. You don't want it. You have to counter that Earth spin with fuel, and that reduces your payload. So that's, first of all, good high latitude, and Shetland is as far north as you can get in the UK. The next thing you're looking at is the actual launch trajectories themselves, because you want them to be direct to where you want to go to. So just as when you go across the Atlantic, you'll fly the Great Circle route, which minimises the amount of fuel that you need to use, and therefore maximises the payload that you can carry. So where we are, we have direct trajectories. For Sutherland, we would compare it to them. If they can get a safe launch trajectory, which I think is a big if, they will still have to do doglegs, which is going to cost them payload. So that's really why Shetland is in such a good position.
Okay, thanks. Obviously, you've been successful in your licence, which is great news. the licence allows up to 30 launches a year. How long, realistically, I mean, is 30 launches a year a realistic proposition? If so, how long to get up to that type of frequency?
In this industry, everything depends, but if we look at last year at Cape Canaveral, they've done about 66 launches, and they're gusting about 70 to 80 for this year. So it's going to take time to get there, there's no doubt about that. We would hope to do it in 5 years, but certainly in 10. I think the difference for us, of course, is we are a multi-user spaceport, so we're not just having one company launching from us. So we're going to have 3 pads, which we're currently building at the moment. Again, if you look at the rest of Europe, the only other likely pads for orbital launch are going to be in Andoya. So that means they're going to have maybe 2 up there. So we are going to have 60% of the launch capacity here in SaxaVord. Beyond that, we've got room for other pads, which we'd need planning permission. We could start to look at those. So it's going to take a bit of time, but we've got all of these companies coming to us, and we don't have a marketing budget. We don't need to market ourselves because the companies do their research, they do their homework, and they come to us.
Okay, thanks. You said earlier on there that you're working closely with CAA and you've got a good working relationship there. In the wider kind of airspace, there's a move towards airspace modernisation, and some of the airlines and airports, to be honest, are saying that the modernisation programme's taking too long and they need to see it speeded up. Does that have any long-term impact on yourselves as you look to increase frequency?
I don't think it is. So we've got an airspace change ongoing at the moment, which should complete in the summer of this year, and that will give us a large amount of airspace, up to about 350 kilometres to the north of us. So we will have that all in place. If there is the airspace modernisation, in any way, it's likely to help us because it will make far more flexible use of the airspace. At the moment, it's a bit with, set-aside areas, danger areas, a bit clunky. So we would support that. I would say, though, again, airspace change, that's a 3-year process, and that's a lot of time and money invested into achieving that. So it'd be nice to see it sped up, but again, you've got to think of all the other users. You can't deny airspace to other people who need to use it, like the airlines.
Okay, thanks. Just one final question. So, before Christmas, there was reports of a contractual dispute with the development. Have all these matters been resolved? And that's not a barrier to, obviously, your time frame in getting that first launch? No. So we're just about complete on Pad 1, which is where Rocket Factory House we're going to be launching from. We're completing the stool on that. The hangar is being completed at the moment with the clean rooms within it, and we'll be bringing in all the range infrastructure. So, no, we're absolutely confident we will make the timescales. I think for me, always the worry would be, are the launcher going to get their launch license from the CAA? I don't see us as being the long pole in the tent. Okay, thanks. Thanks, yeah.